far less female roles than there are male roles. It's a male dominated industry. It's like construction. It's always going to be like that. And so, when I go up for an audition, the competition can be fierce. So I try to turn everything into a positive and take a lesson out of greatness. Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler, Herbert Bergdorf, uh, you know, they came
Sanford Meisner.
Stanford Meisner, Crawford, they all
Yeah,
came from
Ellen.
group theater, Stanislavski. So to me, they were great. And I always tried to take a lesson out of it. And that's the lesson that I take whenever I find people being especially hard on me. Um, they're, they're interested, because if they're not interested, they're not gonna push and needle and try and extract the information. I interviewed with Terry Knickerbocker. The only technique I haven't studied is Meisner, and so I had taken a very long sabbatical from acting to parent and raise my children, and then I got back into it about 3 years ago. And a couple of months ago, I had been putting up workshops with Vinnie Pastore, and he gave me all the classics, Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, Joe Bologna, Renee Taylor, David Ives. I just fall in love with them and their work.
Their work, yes.
And so one thing that I find at this stage in my life, at this age, is that when I'm acting opposite other actors, I tend to find that I'm looking for something from them in certain scenes, and I'm
What
not
do you
getting.
mean by that? That's interesting. Maybe
Uh,
you could explain what that.
I'm looking for an energy from them. I'm looking for the character that they're supposed to be. I'm looking for, Stanley Kowalski. I'm looking for, Eddie Carbone from you
The
from
View from the Bridge. Yeah, I played him.
I'm looking for Death of a Salesman. I'm looking for them, and I feel like I'm just working with actors that are more interested in their wardrobe
Yes,
and remembering their lines than who you're supposed to be right now. You know
that's
what I
why it's
mean?
called the work. They don't do the work.
Right. So I
You're looking
always
for a relationship, isn't it? Really?
I'm looking for reciprocated energy. I'm looking for something that my character, Beatrice Carbone,
Yeah.
she's one of my favorite characters, typical uh, subservience housewife in the 1950s that really ran the roost, but let her husband think he was the boss,
Right.
because that was a smart way of getting things done in your household in the 1950s in New York City.
Yes.
And you know, um, I was working with people that sometimes they'd go up on a line, and this is just a workshop. So I was looking for Eddie Carbone. I'm looking for my husband's, who I think has a thing for his niece. That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. And you know, I feel like there's more life that I could bring out if I got that energy. So I had reached out to, I watched a documentary on James Gandolfini's teaching with Meisner, and he studied with someone in LA, in Los Angeles. So I reached out to her a year ago, and she said, gee, we never come to New York, but why don't you study with Terry Knickerbocker? He's my counterpart in New York. So I contacted him a couple of months ago, and everything is virtual. And so I asked if I can audit a class, and they were kind enough to allow me to audit a class. His administrative assistant is a real sweetie pie, and she said to me, we don't usually let people audit a class. So I said, well, tell Terry that I'm very serious about it. I'm not just looking to, you know, feel him out. And I gave her the backgrounds and how I had contacted LA. And they let me audit the class, and I loved it. But my decision breaker was, how can I need to do this live, John. Especially Meisner, where if you're working off of somebody's energy, I can't do it virtually. It's not going to work for me.
It's, yeah, that connection is really difficult.
And it's very important for me at this point in my life. That's what I'm looking for. But I still have Herbert Bergdorf, Strasberg, the Method, Stella. And when I did go to Lee Strasberg, I studied under people that studied directly under Lee.
Right.
And the same thing with Stella Adler. I sought out the teachers that studied under her, and that's who I studied with.
Mm.
And then HB Herbert Bergdorf, he has affordable spaces so that you can continually practice and develop your technique and your own craft.
Yes. I just did a show with Catherine Carlin, who studied with Uda for 5 years. And she's a member of the Actors Studio. And she's a private coach too, but she's really good, very good, Catherine Carlin. If you'll see one of the shows, if you ever wanted to talk to her, she's a great coach. There's a lot what you're saying, I understand. And it's really difficult today to find. I find actors today, they're more interested in being movie stars than they are about doing the work. That's why we have a lot of people from Europe, and you see them playing American parts, from New Zealand, England, and just because over there they study.
Seriously study. In Italy also.
All over Europe. Yeah, my friend Lily Vitali, she does Anna Mangani, and it's a woman show. There, if you want to know what acting is about, just watch Anna,
Oh,
her
she's
work.
my favorite actress, Magnani.
Yeah, she was a real Italian woman, she was real, and that's what is just incredible about her. I almost talk about her on every show. I mean, I'm just such a big fan of hers. I fell in love with her in The Rose Tattoo when I first saw that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite movies. And I love when she confronts the town women and the
Yes.
priest at the church.
Yes.
And the emotional levels of connections that are there for her I think not only did she enhance them from studying seriously, but they're there for her naturally through her life.
Yeah.
She has those to resort to.
Yes. Well, her background wasn't really, easy.
Right.
The first play I ever did was The Fugitive Kind, and that was the play when she did Office Descending was the name of the play. But the movie was The Fugitive Kind, and the snakeskin jacket Marlon Brando wore. That was the first play I did. I've just been a fan of hers, and it's just incredible. But so what? The workshops now. What are you doing now to keep yourself busy doing?
Well, now during COVID, I'm actually looking for a new representation. So that's keeping me busy, especially since reproductions.com is not open yet. So
Yeah.
I can't get my most recent headshots printed. I have to find another place. And, so I go into, we used to have the Ross reports. Remember those?
Yes.
They listed every single talent agency in Manhattan.
Yes.
So I find similar sites that I go on to, and just try to find out if they still want hard copies or if I have to email. And I'm actually working on 3 projects with an Italian writer and director from Little Italy, and they're Italian dramedies, stories about real life married couples, empty nesters, but Italian families. Neighborhood husbands and wife, and her dreams of becoming an entertainer, that she sacrificed to have a family. She followed tradition of generations. And she has her like Alice Cramden honeymooners day of reckoning this day when her husband comes home and he's completely not expecting her to be this, you know, like this wicked source coming at him. But everything's on hold, John.
Yes,
You
but
know,
it's starting to pick up again now. I mean, I think after the election, things are going to really open up.
I hope so. Well, big productions, you know, television network productions are on. You know, they're shooting in Manhattan, and I've been working with James Chacon a lot, coaching, and he also, if you're part of his class, I've been studying with him for about a year and a half. And he gives me scenes for television, so I'm challenged myself to take on the goal of working on a network television show.
Right.
Steady income, steady work, and it's constant work until theater opens up. So I challenged myself. He gives me roles that I never would have thought of for myself. So that was something new for me to do, and I've been pretty successful at it. And if you're in his class, he brings in legit casting directors. So I'm getting my name out there and networking my work and my face with a couple of casting directors that, you know, that cast for shows that I think I'd be suitable in. So I'm trying to make the best of 2020, of a bad situation.
Well, when they look at your resume, they see where you studied. They know you're serious. When they look at that, you know, HB Studios and, you know, Stella Adler, then people know that you're serious about the business. You're not just want to be a movie star. You want to be an actor.
Well,
Speaking of,
I'm glad that you made that point. And I think that when they first meet me, they know that I'm serious about the craft. I'm not doing this as a fly by night wish, you know, hope and a wish that I'm going to make $1 million somehow
right.
and, you know, live the Hollywood lifestyle. That's not why, if that's why you're getting into acting, then you shouldn't. This is not, for the gentle at heart.
No, it's not.
It's a dirty business. It's a tough business.
It's
It's a cutthroat business. Everybody knows that's in it.
yes. I want to get back. Did you ever read Uda's book, The Challenge to the Actor?
No, I didn't. I read the
It's,
group theater. That was one of the first books that Beckett had us read.
no, she has, it's the best book on acting that you'll ever read. It's called A Challenge to the Actor by Uda Hagen. It's a second book. And Salome Jens and all these people that I know, they all recommend that. I read it. And everybody I talk to, I always, when I was teaching, I always had the class. We would read the book because people buy the book and they read it, then it goes on the shelf. It's one of those books you got to take with you. And there's exercises in it that you could do at home that are really great. They do.
I'm gonna get it. I was reading. So one of the requirements for me to audit Meisner's class, I had to read Sanford Meisner's book. What's Uda's book?
A Challenge to the Actor. It's the second one that she. It's on Amazon for about $25. It's really worth it. It's the best book out there of them all.
What
And
is it? Is it similar to? Does she teach similar exercises to?
Yes, she has. And there's one great exercise that she has in there where when you come home the day, you know, your day, you go through it as an exercise. Remember everything you did that day.
Into detail.
Into detail.
Right. When you walked in, what did your house smell like?
Yes.
What perfume? Yes, I remember. Yeah.
Yes. You know, it's great exercise to get you so that when you do, especially Eddie Carbone, and when you do, you know, it's funny, A View from the Bridge, I asked Arthur Miller, I asked him, did he write that because of La Boheme? You know, the opera. And he told me no, because you know, there's something about La Boheme that always reminded me of A View from the Bridge. I don't know what it was. I mean, one is in Paris. I played Alfari too. I did that for Shelley Winters, a scene at the Actors Studio, which was interesting. She was a great teacher, you know. She gave me the best advice as an actor one day. She told me, sit down, John, you're acting.
What did you change after that?
I didn't act. She was so right. I was so, you know, I was acting. I was performing. I wasn't in the moment. I was remembering lines.
Right,
You know?
right, exactly.
And it was the greatest advice, you know, that I ever got as an actor.
It feels better when you're not thinking of the lines.
You can, I've done plays and stuff where it's there. You know? My final at the Actors Studio, I had Frankie and Johnny. Till this day, I don't remember what I did. And I did it for Mark Rydell, Martin Landau, and Sidney Pollack. They were the judges. And till this day, I don't remember what I did.
The last scene you put up?
Huh?
The last scene you put up?
The line.
Remember?
I don't remember what I did Frankie and Johnny, and I don't remember doing it. I mean, till this day, I don't remember what I said or how it went. But you know, I passed because I was so in the moment.
Right.
The only thing I remember at the end was grabbing Judy Baldwin's legs. And I don't know why I did that, but I remember that. Anyway, it got me in. And I wanted to ask you about Vinnie Pastel. He was teaching you, right? You said?
Yeah, Vinnie actually was teaching workshops at HB.
I didn't know that.
So what happened was when I reintroduced myself back a couple of years ago, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back and take Beckett's class because Beckett was my very first acting teacher. And I learned a lot from him. And his class was filled, so I was waitlisted. And then I got a call from HB and they said, hey, you know, Vinnie Pastore is teaching. We might think we think you might be a good fit for his workshop. So I was like, all right, you know, I wanted to get back into it. I had just shot a pilot. I was all psyched. I nailed the scene. It felt great. And so this was my reintroduction back into the business. So I wanted to get back in. And so HB was my first stomping grounds, and that's where I went back to. And I took Vinnie's workshop, and the first scene that he gave me was from Renee Taylor and Joe Bologna, Lovers and Other Strangers.
Yeah.
And he gave myself and my scene partner, Lou, Hal and Kathy to do. It was one of the vignettes from the play. And we put it up, and I fell in love with their work. I fell in love with their work. I started to read everything I could from them. And I nailed it. There's something about breaking out a Jewish New York City accents that just comes so naturally to me. Yeah. I absolutely love it.
I hear it now. I hear it now. You went right into it.
Oh my God. I have to tell you, so I'm studying a monologue from Lovers and Others, from It Had to Be You, for Bruce Ornstein. A friend of mine reached out to me a week ago that I've been friends with, a serious theatrical actor. And we've just been friends on social media for the past 4 years. And every time I would post something on social media, it was something that I'm seriously doing, John. You'll never see me post, oh, I have an audition tomorrow, or, you know, when I have work, that's when I post, when it's booked. Mm. So he saw that I was a serious actress, and he reached out to me a couple of weeks ago, and he said, did you ever think of studying with the Cherry Lane Theater Ensemble? So I said, no, where is it? He said, Cherry Lane in the Village. I said, oh, well, I went to art school in the Village. I studied in the Village. So that was already a plus because I love the Village in New York City.
Yeah, I lived in the Village.
And where did you live?
I lived on King Street back in 1967 when I first became an actor.
Wow.
I
What a
attended
life.
bar on Bleecker Street, Louis Tavern and the Village Corner and all of them. You know,
Wow.
the Village was something else back then. You know, right then you had Chin on the corner there on Sullivan Street. He used to hang out on the corner.
I could only imagine. And
It
on the
was in a different time, and it was a great era. You know, the '67 to the '69. Instead of picking up a script, I picked up the gun, and you know, I went away for a while. But when I was away, I got back into acting. I only got back into acting because it got me out of the cell, you know.
well, that was a good reason.
Yeah, and then it got me parole too.
I know, but look at where you studied after that. You wound up at the actor studio with great actors, great.
Oh yeah, when I come out here, I got very lucky. I got into the studio. I did a play by Mike Gazzo, who wrote A Hat Full of Rain. And the play has never been done. It's only been done once in New York at a reading, and you know, Tony Sirico did it. You know, who was on The Sopranos?
Yeah,
Paulie?
I know Tony Sirico.
And the play was called The October Day of Tommy Zero. And when I did it, in LA, it was called The October Night of Tommy Zero. And Tony and I used to kid about that. We're the only two that ever did the play Tommy Zero.
What is it about?
It takes place at a bar in New York. You know, it's never been done, you know, professionally, really. I don't understand why. We did it at Actors Studio, where there's no, you know, when you do a play at the Actors Studio, there's no reviews, because it's called, you know, it's a work in progress.
Right.
You know, you're developing it. So, but I got a lot, you know, it got me into the Actors Studio as a finalist. And then I did my.
So who did you audition in front of?
The second time I did when I did Frankie and Johnny, that's what I told you. I did it for Mark Rydell, Martin Landau, and Sidney Pollack, the lead director. And that's when I did Frankie and Johnny for my final, and I passed the audition. The first time I did it, I did Gary Gilmore, and I was drunk. Yeah, I took some lady out of a bar and made her come up and do the scene with me, and she never come up on stage. And I don't know, and they kept me, you know, they, you know, Marty and them, and they kept me in this, you know, I still stayed as a finalist. They should have kicked me out, but they didn't, you know.
Well, so I'm going to audition for Bruce Ornstein. You know who he is?
Who?
Do you know who Bruce Ornstein is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so do you remember Gus from Saturday Night Fever?
Oh yes, yeah.
The one that got beat up by the gang, and they went to visit him in the hospital.
Yes.
And he said, "No, I didn't say it was the Barracudas. I said it might have been the Barracudas." And then they smacked him. His leg was up in the trash. So that was Gus.
Oh.
So my friend from social media invited me to this theater ensemble in Cherry Hill. He's the director. He's coached Sam Rockwell. You know, he's directed and written some nice work I've found through my own research. And they put up 4 productions, 3 one-act plays, and a full production every year, except for this year. And I thought I had a good feeling about it. And I spoke to him. He spent an hour talking to me on the telephone. And so I'm going to audition for him, and hopefully I'll get into this theater ensemble. But I also want to audition in 2021 for the Actors Studio.
You should. I was just thinking that. I don't know why you know, they have them once a month, I believe.
Well,
you know,
now I don't think they're doing anything, John.
Huh?
I don't think they're doing anything now.
No, I'm saying once they open up, they'll have them like once a month. I know out in LA, we have it once a month. They did, but they'll be opening up soon. Yeah, it's a great place because everything is free at the Actors Studio.
And I think that when you graduate from the actor studio, that you have put in a lot of tough, serious, hard work, and people take you seriously, and you have better opportunities of getting cast in things.
Well, the actor studio, are you talking about the school or the actor studio?
The school.
Oh, that's different. I mean, but you could audition for the actor studio,
I should
on 44th Street.
I should audition for the.
Yeah, well, you don't need to go to the school. You should,
Well,
you got enough.
I already studied Lee Strasberg, so.
Sure. I mean, when they open up, you just do a scene. The one you just said you did 5 minutes. They give you 5 minutes.
And you can select your own scenes?
Yes, they contemporary. I always tell people, make sure if it's 5 minutes, make it less. Leave them waiting. Make them hang. Leave them, wanting more.
Yes, yeah, you have to be interesting. It's funny you should bring that up, because I just had this conversation with someone the other day. Actors look at scenes and productions and capturing the audience's attention differently. Like for me, I always feel like you should capture the audience's attention immediately.
Immediately, yes.
Because then they're interested in you and they're going to watch to see what happens. Forget about, well, lead up to it. Lead up to what? If you're boring in the beginning, they're not going to watch you.
Well, I've been very fortunate. I never worry. I never see the audience. Even in movies, I don't see the camera.
Yeah.
A lot of times I used to walk off at a camera and they have to cut, But in the theater, I don't see anybody.
I do think it's important for me, because I think about my success in the role.
Well, if you're doing the work, the audience will be with you. If you believe it, I'll believe it.
Yeah.
I believe in that.
But I'm just saying, that's something that I believe in as an actor.
More of what you're saying, it takes place in a play. If a play is boring or it doesn't capture the audience in the first few minutes, you're going to lose them.
So what was when you were in the big house, what were you reading? How did you start off reading plays? What was your interest?
Well, actually, no. They had, I'm an actor who I do it. You give me a script, I read the lines, and I let them take me where they take me. I don't go into a lot of the emotional memories or this and all the work that people talk about. If it's good writing or whatever it is, I'll go with it. It'll take me, and I just go with it. I don't try to figure it out. The biggest compliment I got was, people always said about me, they see the character. Every time they see my work, they see the character. They don't see John Solari.
Right.
I've been working on Eugene O'Neill's Huey right now. I don't know if you know the play. It's a 2-character, it's just damn near 28-page monologue, really. And I love the play. I love it. It's just wonderful. And a few years back, Mark Rydell gave me the biggest compliment when he said, "I love to work with you." This is a great director, telling me that he loved to work with me.
And you already knew him from the actor studio.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, and he was one of the moderators. And he said, and they critique your work, but he said he loved to work with me. So I would, it's a compliment. It's just that I do the work my own way. My method. I always tell people when they talk about the method, your method is your method.
Yep. Yep, that's what Herbert Bergdorf was all about, developing and refining your own technique.
Your own, that's it. I always believe that. A lot of times I hear people when they do a scene and then they ask them, well, what did you work on? They talk about 10 different things. And I'm saying to myself, how could you work on all these things and do the same?
Yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be in character. Who has time, even a split second, to, think of a past emotion? You've got to be there.
You got to be in it. It's if you're in the moment, that's where the work comes in. You know, you learn your lines and see where they take you. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, I write my lines down, and every time when I'm saying them, every time I miss a line, I start from the top. You know,
Yeah.
that's how I memorize. I work on my memorizing lines when I carry them, and you got to do a lot of work.
Yeah, I write mine. You know how I go off book?
Excuse
I'll
me?
read. You know how I go off book?
Oh,
I'll read the script a couple of times. As I'm reading through it, I'm already developing the character in my mind. And I make changes as I go. I change things. And then I write everything on index cards. I write alternating lines in order on index cards, and I study these.
well, that's interesting.
And this is how I get off book. And then like if you go off, you could test yourself almost, just flip it over. But that's effective for me to do it that way. I read the script a number of times in my mind. I'm creating the character. Where am I? Where did I just come from? What am I wearing? What do I smell like? What did I eat? What space am I at? How do I want to bring this emotion? You know, why is she feeling this way? What happened to her? And I'm thinking of so many things at the same time: wardrobe, makeup, emotional connections. That's probably the first thing that happens for me, is the emotional connection as I'm reading through it a couple of times. And then once I kind of have a little bit of a detailed general idea of the character that I want to bring life into, then I go to the index cards, and then I go off book. And once I'm off book, it all starts to come together. To me, once I'm off book, then everything else comes together for me.
Yes. And a lot of times too, I'll just, I know the lines, and I'll go a book, and then I just improvise until I find it. Different things, go try different ways, but the lines will be there. But once you own the lines, you can do anything you want with it.
Absolutely.
But you have to own them.
Yes. Yep.
That's the key. Once you own it, then you can do what you want with it. Wherever you want to go, it's going to go. And you don't have to worry about them lines because you own them. It's
kind of like manifesting, and being positive, or saying a prayer. The more powerful and positive you feel and you are, the more it happens.
Right. You're right. Wow. Really interesting. This has been a real good one. I know a lot of people will enjoy listening to this, but I have to, next time I do show, you have a virtual background going on there, huh?
I do. Isn't it?
A lot of times, you need a green screen to do that, because sometimes it cuts your face off, and you'll see when you see the show. Like your hair, you're losing your hair on one side when you move around. So you have to get a green screen, or don't. Just I have it. See, you can see my clothes hanging.
I saw, I love this background. But the next time I'll put up my professional backdrop, or you can see my dining room table behind me. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because it's very distracting to the audience without that back, if you don't have the green screen or that, because that does away with all that 3D.
Yeah, I'm Italian, so it's hard for me to sit still.
No, me too. You look at it, you say,
yeah, you have to move your fingers, your hands. And that's something that was a challenge for me.
Yes.
Studying with James for television series, is that they want you in this, they want you in the frame, and I'm like, but I'm Italian, I can't stay in that frame. But,
I
you
had
know,
that with Danny Aiello. We did a movie together called Ruby, about Jack Ruby. And I was all over the place, you know, got out of line. You know, Danny was that way too.
on stage, I was never told to stay in frame. You know what I mean? So it's something that so I've been studying with James for a little bit over a year, and I just started auditioning with the casting directors, as I was telling you, to get my name and my face and my work out there. I'd say maybe the last 4 months, right? And, I thought to myself, I have to stay in frame, but I can't let myself, I can't let this become a habit,
No,
because when
don't.
I go back onto stage, I want to I want to have the freedom to move.
You got to stop that. Don't do that. I don't worry about that. That's what the cameraman's job is. My job is to act.
But they tell you, John.
Yeah, I know. They give you some, you know, so you do it again. But I don't worry about the camera. I don't even see it. But it's their job. You know, in rehearsal, they'll see something and then but you can't worry about the camera because then you're acting.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is, if I was on set and shooting, nobody stands perfectly still, their whole dialogue, the whole scene.
No.
I think it's just for the audition process.
Well, that's something different. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole technique. That's where technique comes in.
Right.
Yeah. But as far as acting goes, you know, if you're in the moment, you're in the moment. I don't worry about other things. When I go out, you know, that's their job.
Yeah.
You know?
So what are some of your favorite plays or playwrights?
Well, you know, I'm really into like O'Neill and the classics. You know, I've done them. I I've been working on Gary Gilmore, that Norman Mailer wrote a book called The Executioner's Song. And there's letters in there that he wrote to his Nicole that have never been done. But as an actor, every time I do them, I do them different, and I find something as an actor. You know, it's almost like they become an exercise for me. And
You mean
his letters, if you ever get the book, The
to
Execution Song,
redo it in a with a different choice? Is that what you're saying?
well, then it just comes natural, different choices. You
Hmm.
know, when you're saying the lines, things happen, and
Yes,
you learn how to
absolutely,
just go with it, see where it takes you, instead of
absolutely.
directing myself. I just go wherever it is. One day I was doing it, and it was coming out like Shakespeare. Like I was, whoa, what's going on? And I just went with it. You know,
I remember listening to one of the teachers at Strasberg Institute, and I remember they would tell you, be in character and do it and let it go and then hold back.
yes.
And it's so, you know what, John? I see you have a smirk on your face. I know you know what I'm talking about. It's like, when you're first starting off, you think the right way to be is to go big, but it's not.
Yeah.
Less is always
Yes.
more.
Yes. Yes. You're so right. I mean, you learn that through time. Well, you don't perform, you do.
Right.
You know, you
And
have to. So many actors want to perform.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
Or
like
indicate.
you said, you have to, you keep, it's the experience, that brings you through.
Takes time.
Yeah.
And it's you know, actors, you see them indicating and you know what they're going to do. You know, when they're up there and you see them acting, you know exactly what they're going to do next because they're indicating all the time. It's just,
That's interesting. Well, and Brando was famous for um, doing things that were unexpected to the role.
there was Out the Pen told me the greatest, he gave me great advice. He directed Bonnie and Clyde and a lot of movies. Uh, he said, break the rules.
Absolutely.
You know, I always tell my students when I was teaching, break the rules. Never do what they expect.
Absolutely. And that's bringing yourself to the role.
Yes. when I was doing, I tell you, Tommy Zero in LA, Bruce, we had a good cast. Bruce Kirby was in it, Bruno Kirby. And they told me later, they never knew what I was going to do next on stage, because I was always doing something. Whatever was in the moment, I would go with it. Used to drive the director crazy, but I'm on stage and there's nothing you could do. You gotta let me go.
And
I
I
don't
think,
follow, I just follow my instincts.
and it proved to be right. And I love directors that give you the creative freedom to improvise on the scene, because sometimes things are written and the wording doesn't make exact sense to that moment.
Right.
And so if you have the freedom to live, to just like let loose and live the moments, it makes more sense to the scene and it's more successful.
You're right. This has been a, wow, great interview. I'm glad I got you early, because I have some other people coming on, and I'm so glad because I got to talk to you for a whole hour. So,
Thank you. Well, I'm
no, thank you.
you're
Really,
well, so appreciative that you reached out to me. I
this
love
has been a
talking.
great chat. It'll be up later, and I'll send it to you, okay?
Okay, and I will.
Thank you. See, I just might come up for the thing, but we got 5 minutes for the next show. So I got to redo this whole thing. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, John.
Oh, God bless.
Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Let's say leave meeting, yes. So there we go. Ah, the recording.